Hey, everybody, it's Carol Maletta, and I'm bringing you another episode of News You Can Use. I know it's been a little while. I've had a few events coming up and other commitments, so I haven't been with you on Thursday nights. I miss it, but I am very, very excited because, as I told you, tonight I'm able to bring someone on that can talk about something that concerns older children, right? These are, in this case, it's children, students in college. But listen, there are children forever, no matter how old they get. But very often I'm talking about discipline and resilience and just other things that you all have asked about concerning your younger children. So I'm so excited that I'm going to be joined by Evelyn Maultsby Bynum, founder of the Maultsby Way. She is a seasoned career coach. And tonight we're going to be talking about what juniors and seniors in college should be thinking about right now. So I'm not going to delay any further. I'm going to bring her on, and by all means, start thinking about any questions you have, and she will have answers for you. Hey, Evelyn.
Hi, how are you?
Great, great. And thank you so much for joining me. Why don't we just go ahead and get started? And why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a happily married mom of two teenagers, one 13-year-old and one soon-to-be 15-year-old on St. Patrick's Day. I have been living here in Washington, D.C. now for about 10 years, but come to D.C. by way of Chicago and Pittsburgh. Graduated from Howard University back in the day with School of Communications. And then after moving to Chicago to start my career, I decided to go and get a master's degree in human resources. And from then on, I've been charting pretty much a 20 plus year career in human resources, talent management, leadership development. And the majority of the latter half of my career, I've focused on career coaching for MBA students, graduate students, and then professionals. When I was in the MBA space, I worked at Northwestern and at Carnegie Mellon. So at the time, each of those schools, Kellogg was number one business school and number one MBA school in U.S. News and World Report, and Tepper at that time was like number 12. So these are all really high, in-demand MBA programs, which required a certain level of skill and finesse to be able to command these six-figure jobs that these MBA students were landing when they were done. So I was able to take that and then apply it back in the corporate environment in terms of professional presence and coaching, and just has carried on in coaching different people at different times in their career. And so that's what I do now in the Maultsby Way.
Awesome. So now, are there any steps or kind of some specific elements that are unique to the Maultsby Way?
Sure. So I think the first thing that's probably unique to my coaching practice, the Maultsby Way, is just, first of all, the name. It's my last name. And, some people would go, well, why do I care why she has, what her way is? I just need a job, right? But there's a certain element as to why I decided to use that name. And just a little bit of background. In the 1970s, there was a psychiatric therapeutic process that was developed by my father, who is a world-renowned psychiatrist. He's now passed away. His name is Dr. Maxie Maultsby, and it's called Rational Behavior Therapy. And it was built in conjunction with Albert Ellis, who is known worldwide as the founder of cognitive behavior therapy. And so, basically, what that therapy is it's a very pragmatic, no-nonsense, direct approach at learning how to manage your feelings and be able to stay rational and sane and address irrational beliefs and thoughts that pop into your mind, and then just systematically take those beliefs and thoughts and flip them around so that you can maintain a calm presence and so that you can move forward. So it's a therapeutic process that's used throughout the world and, by many psychiatrists and psychotherapists today. And I am not a psychiatrist nor a psychotherapist, but having grown up with it, for 40 some years before my dad passed away, I think I do know the ins and outs and know my way around the process. And so from a coaching perspective, one of the most stressful things ever in top 10 stressors is finding a job, and finding a job when you're in a job because you don't like the one that you have, or finding a job coming out of college, or finding a job because you've been let go, or finding a job because you want to just switch careers and do something new. It's incredibly stressful. And so at a very high level, when I coach, I infuse some fundamentals of that rational behavior in there. So just to make sure that the person is able to kind of stay on track, stay on focus, and that they are rational in every decision that they're making in terms of what's the next step, what is reasonable and rational in terms of a salary, what's reasonable and rational in terms of the expectations this employer is wanting for me in terms of my job. Does that match with what I want? All the different aspects that you would need to look at when you're doing a job search.
And, I think that's a real value add too, because I can certainly say back when I was graduating from college, it was really get a job. That's really what it was. That's what our parents said, get a good job, buy a house, get married, that kind of stuff. But there really wasn't a lot of emphasis on doing the work you love, finding something you're really passionate about. And, that sort of notion of do what you love and the money will follow. That was later. Back then it was just get a job. If it's something you're good at, that's the right job.
Right.
And just go get that. So I think that what you can bring to them is really very valuable, because I didn't start thinking about myself needing to love my job until I was out of college and in a job that, I didn't love. That's how that's really how I learned it.
Right.
And then over time, that's how I began to create work that I love. But it took some time, because I didn't know I was supposed to love my job. I thought I was supposed to be good at it.
Yep. And there's there's a lot of people out there that still feel that way and believe that way, that you're really not supposed to like your job. And and that's why they develop their side hustle or their side career, right? Or they just quit their job altogether and do something completely different. And in various phases of our lives, and as you're building your career, you're going to be faced with that question: is this job the right one for me? And as from a career coaching standpoint, I'm not a life coach. I'm strictly a career coach. I help you figure out what you want to do, and then I help you prepare you to make sure that you get into that job. But I'm also very realistic and rational about, hey, maybe you hate your job right now, but what you're trying to do is going to take you about a year or so. So why can't we let's figure out how we can make this work? Because it would be completely irrational for you to quit your job and not have a job and trying to get into this other place, and now you don't have any funds or anything, and you still don't have your new job, right? So it's just taking a more realistic and pragmatic approach as to how you handle certain things, because sometimes you might be able to make some adjustments if you work with your manager and get them on board. You might be able to make some adjustments in your current job so that you start getting exposure to other things that might make the job more enjoyable, at least until you are ready to move on to somewhere else.
Oh, absolutely. I can absolutely remember being in that sort of position in my with the last organization that I was with before I came home to have my children. And that's really kind of what I did, because I knew, within a year or so I wanted to have children. So I just started doing like what you said. I wasn't 100% pleased with the organization, but I found other ways, other assignments to make it interesting while I wrote out, my time before I went out on maternity leave and like never went back. So
some people don't, right?
They didn't know it, but I knew it. So, okay, let's now take a look at college students, particularly juniors and seniors. Like, what should they be doing now? They're almost ready to launch, and we do have this tricky time that we're in with the pandemic. So, what are you thinking about there?
So for juniors and seniors, and I would even say with some sophomores out there, the first and foremost thing is that, for the parents that are out there listening, you have the valuable asset that your child is in a college or a university, right? And hopefully they have a good career center there. If they are in the School of Business, they might. The School of Business has its own. If it's a significant a significant university, meaning large scale university, and their school of business is a well-known one, they typically have their own career center that works with just those individuals and those undergrad students. If they don't, then there's the Central University Career Services Center for all students. So what I would suggest is that the key thing that your child needs to be doing is they need to be meeting with a career coach, whether it's somebody on campus or somebody like myself that parents hire to help their child. And so, and that needs to be done early on. So hopefully in your junior year. And if you haven't done it in your junior year, you should need to be jumping on that now, if you're a senior, and try and do a self-assessment. The career coaches can do assessments for the students that help them kind of figure out, all right, I'm about to get this degree, or I have these interests. What can I do with my degree, with this piece of paper once I leave out of here? And so in the School of Business, they have, for individuals going into corporate America, there's an assessment called Career Leader, which is just fabulous. And many of the universities have it. And they do this, the child goes in and they answer all these different questions. And then it comes out and gives them like a 30-some page report telling them their values, their skills, their interests. And then all of this kind of siphons out and it spits out all these different opportunities and different types of possible careers. And so just a little bit of background on that survey. That survey was actually developed by Harvard Business, by the Harvard Business School. And I remember using that survey about 3 years after it started being rolled out when I was at Carnegie Mellon at Tepper in their MBA school. And they have literally interviewed about 300 or 400,000 business professionals and dissected all of their interests in what they do in their jobs, and they've mapped it to different careers. And so that's why it's a great tool, because you go in and you answer all these questions, and then it's going to spit, hey, you said you like being outdoors, but you also, like doing something for you're concerned about the environment. How about a park ranger? Now, obviously, most people aren't going to necessarily think park ranger, but it spits out all these different opportunities. And then so there's also different kinds of surveys, like the skills interest surveys and strengths finders. So do that. And then once you've gotten those assessments, you've gotten that feedback, then you start looking into, okay, what kind of industry could I go into and what kind of job? And the Vault guides, which all the universities have access to, and sometimes you can even go online, and if your university doesn't have access to them, you can look them out online, and there you can get a certain subset of the information. But I believe if you want more of it, you have to pay, which is why it's good to use your student ID. And they have a Vault guide, which is an in-depth guide, literally into every single type of career or industry. They have one on fashion. I mean, it's like that in depth. And then so what kind of roles you can have. And so go out there and research, and then you start networking with individuals that may be doing jobs that you're interested in. Networking. Before I move on, I did want to tell you that there is a website out there. It's the Business News Daily. And it is it's a really neat website that pulled together. What they did is they took all the popular college degrees that were listed in the USA Today, Forbes, and in the Princeton's Review, all the college degrees. And then they said, all right, out of all these college degrees, what kind of jobs can people getting a biology degree or an economics degree or a language arts degree or an education degree, what kind of jobs can they have? And so you go to that website and you click on the degree that you're going to get, and then it spits out all these different kind of jobs and careers that you can look into. And so, for example, if you click on biology, it'll say veterinarian, medical doctor, whatever. Now, obviously, you have to go to medical school later to complete that, but at least it gives you a direction. So that's a great place to go look as well. And then network is great. Everybody's on, we're all at home. So it's probably easier to get a hold of people now and have a quick 10, 15-minute coffee chat than it ever was before, because they're just at home on call.
That's a very good point.
So, so it's, work with your parents, tap into your kids' networks. And we can talk about the accessing kids' networks later, but that's a gold mine. And, it's tough out there. It's a competitive environment. And so you want to make sure that you're accessing and talking to as many people as you can to just figure out, okay, I want to be I want to be in financial services. Then once you figure out financial services, now you can dig deeper into what to do, and a career coach can help you do all of that.
Wow, that's a wealth of information. So now, what about would these be some of the same tips for juniors that want to land internships during the pandemic, or do you have anything else
So
to say
really
about them?
cool. No, I mean, so same process, right? But I would tell you that when we were going to college, you and I were going to college, there was, you didn't really think about internships until maybe like your junior year, right? So the summer after freshman year and summer after sophomore year were just like your normal run-of-the-mill jobs at the mall or wherever it is that you had. But then once you started getting into your junior year, the summer after junior year was more of a professional one, and hopefully that one would lead you into getting a job offer at the end that would then give you your job for when you graduated senior. Now,
Yeah.
starting to do internships even freshman year, and they are serious. So I would encourage everybody to start trying to do that as soon as possible. If you are someone who has not really had one of those more professional type of interviews, one way that you can do it is, micro internships. I don't know if you've ever heard of that term. Have you heard of that?
I haven't. So let's talk about it.
So micro internships, very cool, is the equivalent of freelance projects.
Okay.
So there are companies, startups, big companies, whatnot, medium company, that they have things that need to be done, and they don't have the people to do it. Or they need somebody who can focus on it for about 20 hours or about 3 months. And they need a specific skill set, but they don't want to hire a full-time person to come in and do this. Or they don't want to take one of their full-time people and give it to them to do this. So they put it on websites like Parker Dewey. Parker Dewey is basically it houses all these different, is a warehouse where you can find all these different micro internships, and universities are partnering with them. I know because when I was at my recent university, they made a contract with Parker Dewey. And I was like, thank goodness, because this thing is amazing. I mean, people who were interested in going into doing social media marketing, there were projects out there for like a month. Create a contact calendar for a month for me, blah, blah, blah. And it said pay $1,000. It'll say, it'll tell you how much they'll pay, $1,000 for 30 hours worth of work or whatever. And then you can go in and you submit your resume directly to those companies. And then they either hire you or they don't. But if you put micro internship after micro internship after micro internship, you link them all together over the span of a summer, you have an amazing internship. Yes, it's for 3 different companies, but it's 3 different types of projects, exposure to 3 different kinds of cultures, 3 different kinds of people, different work. You can say, I want to do one project on data analytics. I want to do another project on social marketing media. I want to do another project on conservation. Now you've got 3 different types of internships that you can put onto your resume that'll make you more interesting, more valuable to a potential employer for your senior recruitment cycle.
Absolutely. I mean, and how are you spelling that? Parker Dewey.
Parker Dewey. So Parker, Parker, Dewey, Dewey.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's really nice. And actually, some of those companies actually even hire people full time after they've worked. So, I mean, you will find year-long contracts, right? So you could be a junior, you could be a sophomore and start working on something, and it's a part-time thing. These are all part-time type roles, and they tell you how many hours it takes. And and you can continue working on it while you're in school. It's all remote. So you can work on it from anywhere. And, you're developing some great networks. I mean, and there were some really good paying ones last time when I last looked at it, I think there was one going for $4,000. I'm like, this is serious money. So.
Oh, absolutely. And then it's just within the span of a summer, you can have 3 different experiences.
Yeah. And you don't even have to wait for the summer because they're listed all year long. So you could start doing something now. I mean, if you know your family is going to be traveling, well, nobody's traveling now, but if let's just say that if everything was normal and you were going to travel, to take this long awaited coveted trip with your family, you're going to be out of pocket. Well, take the advantage of the school year now. Right.
Yeah. Wow. That's really valuable. So now, how about, because this has been definitely tricky. Some juniors haven't been successful in landing a prestigious interview. Say they don't know about Parker Dewey yet or something. What are other ways that they could spend their time that would reflect well with an employer later down the line?
Sure. So that question gets asked a lot by parents, and the one thing I will say is that from a recruiting standpoint, there's never been this pandemic before in 200 years, or it happens every 100 years. And so chances are, once we're done with this one, nobody will be alive that's alive right now to witness the next one, right? So the one question that they're going to ask you is, hey, during this crazy and unique time that's never happened before and will hopefully never happen again, what did you do with that time? And so the person who says, well, I did nothing, I just hung out and played video games, well, that's not going to fly, right? You need to think, so doing some research, learning a new language, learning a new answer, something like that. The Parker Dewey, that's not a company. It's a company that warehouses internships for a whole bunch of other companies.
Oh,
so
right.
The person who isn't able to get the prestigious internship at like an Amazon or a Google or Facebook, Parker Dewey is the way to go, because that's, they have all these opportunities. Also, I would say focus on your not-for-profits, right? I mean, there's always work to be done there, period. And then, they might not be able to pay you, but the exposure and what you can get your hands into is amazing. They're always in need of people who know how to help develop their administrative, their office or their business operations. So you can come in and maybe do some research for them, do some financial analysis for them, whatever. The point is just to get exposure and to start doing the work so that you can talk about the work that you've done, the results of what you've done in your interview. Also reach out to your professors. Maybe they've got some research that on a study that they're working on that they need some assistance in. You can help there too. So that's what I would do. And then network. I mean, you don't have to have a job to network. You can continue networking and talking and getting to know other people and letting them know what you're working on. Even if you don't have a job, let them know, hey, yeah, I'm working on this project. This is what we accomplished. Because the time will come when an opportunity will be available, and you will be, they're going to think, hey, this kid, has been working on these types of projects, even though he didn't get paid or he couldn't get hired, he still found a way to make himself resourceful and a valuable commodity to this organization. So I'd really like to give him a shot, or connect him with some individuals. So do that, read some great books that, cause some introspection, talk about, how you learn how you can contribute beyond just the professional skills that you have, because that's what recruiters are going to be looking. They're going to be looking for some depth in the students that they hire.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when, we first kind of went into this situation, a lot of what you said is what I kind of said to my own sons. And, I was like, be careful about, chilling out too much during this, because that's going to be a way that you can really differentiate yourself, because what you said about, they're going to want to know, what did you do? How did you respond to this? I mean, because that's a great indicator of how you respond to, unexpected situations. Yeah. How do you make use of your time?
And I just, and I'll use this. It's not a 100% match to this particular comment, but it is something that stuck with me when I was working at the university and saw some students go through this. They weren't my students, but I heard about it at my husband's company. They run rotational and leadership development programs, which I can get into and talk about in a second here, because they are phenomenal. But anyway, they were having a networking session for high potentials. It was a diversity, diverse students coming from all different universities in to meet all these executives. Pandemic happened. Shutdown happened like literally a week before. So all these students that were supposed to fly in were not able to fly in. And so the company gave them the option to continue with doing everything that they would do in person virtually. They gave them the option to do that. And if you can believe it, a lot of students bailed.
What?
Yes. And I was like, what? And and in my mind, I was like, that is like the craziest thing, and these aren't my students, because I would have been like on the phone, like, you better call back and say you made a mistake. But I cannot believe that was the response, was to say, well, it's going to be virtual. It's not going to be, and then they bailed. And so guess who got the offers?
Wow. Everybody
who stayed and participated and went the virtual, because it highlighted a whole bunch of other skills,
sure.
That maybe wouldn't have been able to show up if they were in person. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's what companies are looking for, are the students that are willing to, take new opportunities, even if it kind of makes them a little nervous. Like, who knew if that whole networking, it was a 2-day long session, was going to even be, successful. But these students committed to it. They stuck with it. And, they ended up getting offers. Right. And
wonderful.
So it's just, so you need to, the students need to be thinking about that mindset. They need to have that mindset that, hey, this isn't going to be 100% the way that I want it to be, or the way that I expected it to be, but let me just see it through, because you don't know what's going to happen at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the biggest things that I can tell, graduating seniors. Also, you have a long runway to develop your 30 to 40 year career, and your internship is just the very first half step to the full step of getting your first job. But your first job is just one of 20 different jobs that you're going to have in your career. So your first one is not going to make or break you. All it's going to do is going to open up a door that can hopefully open up many more doors further down the road. So just look at it from that long-term mindset, and make yourself available to opportunities that you may not necessarily think to make yourself available for.
Yeah, and I hope that young people today really get that, and I would think so, because their parents, certainly the 20-somethings, their parents are having a very different career than, say, my parents. Where you got a job with the government, or you got the job with an employer, and you just hung in there for 30 years, or you stayed in the same industry. You really didn't move around. But now that's what you see, pretty much. So I'm hoping that they will see that these virtual internships or whatever are really just a stepping stone, and it's not going to define the rest of your career, because you started off with something that you weren't 100% interested in, or it wasn't the full experience that you had hoped for. Right. So what are you thinking? Do you think that companies have really kind of, since it has been, almost a year now, have they pretty much got a handle now, and they will hire, even if their employees might need to start off virtually, but they kind of have a system now to onboard the employees, the new employees and all of that. So hiring will be, I don't know if it'll be as brisk as it, would have been earlier, because you still have the economy and, uncertainties there. But you think that they'll be hiring a good number?
Yeah, so they are going to be hiring. I mean, it's not going to be as robust as it was in like 2019, or anything pre-COVID. But yeah, according to the National Associations of colleges and employers, the outlook for 2021 senior hiring is more positive than one would have expected. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that there are several companies out there, of several industries out there, that are hiring, and they're hiring in big numbers, right? And they, if you can expect, they have to do a lot with the, us kind of getting ourselves out of this situation. So there's a lot of hiring in pharmaceuticals, and and in the chemical manufacturing industries. There's a lot of the supportive services hiring that's going on, and in IT, and then in wholesale trading. So, excuse me. So that's definitely happening, and it's helping the overall outlook for senior hiring, be a lot more positive than it would have been. But however, even still, hiring is still going to occur in all the other companies that you would have normally expected it to occur, but they're going to be a little bit more cautious, right? Because the last thing they want to do is get caught with how they got caught last year, where they had extended multiple offers and then they had to rescind some in some instances. And also, some of those students that they had given offers to, they didn't rescind the offers. They just delayed them. They said, we're delaying the offer and having it start in 2021. So, so you'll have some students who, where that will now be affecting the numbers of individuals that they are hiring this year. Some companies may not hire at all because they did that to their entire group that they gave offers to, but others might be onesie twosies. But here's the thing that I want to talk about, which is the one thing that for sure I believe all companies will be still recruiting for, maybe in smaller numbers, but still recruiting for, are these rotational and leadership development programs. Are you familiar with them?
Sure. I was hired into one out of business.
Right, you were hired. Yes. So those things, it surprised me, this one university that I went to go work for, that they did not really know about them very much. I mean, they knew about the consulting the consulting side, but they didn't have access to a lot of the rotational and leadership development programs because the companies did not recruit at that university. Well, now, because of the pandemic, the companies are changing their entire recruiting strategy, and in many instances are just posting their opportunities online. Well, they've always posted them online, but they really focused on getting folks from, they would get like 80% of their people from their partner universities and then open up the last, 20% of their opportunities to anyone who applied. But now I think that's really changed. And so I would encourage the juniors and seniors, and in some respects, sophomores, because sophomores can even come up into these programs now. Definitely start looking and researching those programs and get on their mailing lists, because you can go up and they may not have opportunities right now, but they'll say, sign up for our list, and we'll let you know as soon as recruiting starts in this area. I mean, and they are all over the place. It used to be just big companies that had them, but now it's small companies, it's medium companies, it's not-for-profits, larger not-for-profits, government has them. I mean, it's amazing. And so, getting hired into one of those programs, you're almost protected, if you will, right? Because recruiters see the people that they hire into those programs as like their future top talent. Many of these people stay at the company and become future leaders. So they're, if they got to let go of other people around the company, they're going to do that before they let go of the people in these programs. And so that would be my suggestion, is start looking at all of these now.
Yeah, and that is good because, they're actually making an investment in those, in that group of people. So yeah, absolutely. I'm also wondering, do you ever recommend sometimes, particularly when there's a tricky economy or something like that, or, even the pandemic, do you ever sometimes suggest that they go to graduate school and use that and ride out the wave? What do you think about that?
So here's the thing, and and a lot of people say, well, I'll just do that, and then I'll come out when it's okay. I will tell you, going back to my days when I worked at Carnegie Mellon in their MBA program. Again, it was in the top 15 business school in the country. So literally everybody who graduates from that program gets hired and gets a really good job. The ones that had the hardest time getting hired were the ones that came straight from undergrad and went right into business school. And the reason is because they are competing against the other students who actually went out and worked for 2 to 3 years and then came back. So they have not really been able to add to the conversation in the classroom. And so then when they go into an interview, they're not really going to be able to talk about like, well, in my old job, I did this, or, and now I would have done it differently, whatever, because they have nothing to compare it to. And so my fear is that if you go straight into business school or straight into graduate school, you're going to be coming against those that are on this year 2 of being in grad school, and they've had those opportunities, right? And then you're now going up against them, and it's going to be tougher for you because, hey, they got to pay the same salary. So am I going to take the one with more experience or the one with no experience? They're going to take the one with more experience. Or if they give it to the one with less experience, it's going to be at a cheaper rate. And you're not going to have anything. You're not going to have anything to stand on in terms of requesting a higher salary. And so I think it's really, this type of philosophy would be directly applicable to MBA school, right?
I was going to say business school is kind of like that. Yeah,
business school is like that. School, graduate school for communications, or graduate school for liberal arts, or graduate school for any other kind of thing.
Law school, yeah.
Law school, then yes. Yeah. Then I would say yes, go ahead. Go ahead and go straight through. Because then, I don't know enough about the legal world to be able to speak upon whether or not, working in a law firm for a year is going to make or break you, or, compared to those who haven't. But I know in business, it does. So you really think about that before you do that.
Yeah, that was definitely my observation about business too. And law school, when I was back in graduate school, most of them came straight through. And what I understood was that, they like to teach you how to think in law school, like think like a lawyer and start from, start from the beginning. So very often they don't mind, and a lot of the younger, they tended to be a lot younger than us over in the business school. They tended to be a lot younger than us because usually most of us had worked 2 years before we went. So
now, I do have one other thing to say. So let's say you graduate with a liberal arts degree, and then you go, I'm really interested in business, so I'm just going to go ahead and go on to B school. So liberal arts degree, you want to go into business school. That's fine. But I'll just tell you, you need to, and a good career coach will tell you this, that your pool of candidates that you're going up against is not the MBA students. Your pool of candidates that you're going up against is the undergrad senior. And so you're just going to need to mentally make that shift and be okay with that. And not only does the student need to be okay with that, but you're going to have to mentally make that shift and convince the interviewer that you're the better hire than the undergrad senior. Wow. And so, because you will not get somebody with like a liberal arts degree who goes and gets, an MBA. They're not gonna take you over somebody that has experience and now came and got their MBA. No,
that's a good point. Wow.
So,
okay, that's a very good point. So, tell us if you have anything coming up that you want to tell our viewers about, and then of course, let them know how they can follow you on social media, your website, and all of that.
Sure. So, it's, I have recently, I've had this private practice here for a while, and it's been, mostly word of mouth and everything. And then, and then just taking private projects here and there. But now I've recently kind of launched into doing this whole social media marketing piece. And so you can follow me on, Twitter. And my handle is @careercoach4 with the number 4 and then the letter U. So career coach, the number 4, the letter U. And then also my website is The Maultsby Way. It's www.themaltsbyway.com. I also have a page on my LinkedIn. It's under The Maultsby Way, or you can just look me up and then you'll see a link there to my page. And then also on Facebook, I have a Facebook page out there as well. And so I send out posts, and, I'm trying to do 3 to 4 blogs, 3 to 4 blogs or posts a week. And so I send them out through those different mediums. And then, if you happen to be a member on Clubhouse, I have been known to hop into some of those career discussions there and give my little pieces of advice along with some other great career coaches. So there's lots of different ways you can get a hold of me. And then also, if you just want to shoot me a straight email, you can be reached at Evelyn@maultsbyway.com.
Wonderful. Well, I've got to tell you, I can't wait to post the replay, because you really dropped a lot of wisdom here tonight. I mean, this was juicy. This was juicy. I'm telling you. I mean, and listen, I have 2 college juniors,
Right.
so I wasn't, and actually, I honestly hadn't even, when we planned that you would come on, I hadn't even thought about, the guys and how useful this information would be. So I'm going to actually make sure to ping them and say, you need to listen to this interview. So thank you so much for joining me.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. I always love talking about career management topics, and
it shows. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. And that's great. That's great. So, all right then. So thank you
so much
to those who tuned in. And also, I hope that you'll tune in tomorrow to the Parenting 411. I will be talking about overcoming trauma. It'll be part 2 in my series about trauma. And we will be focusing on the children tomorrow. Last time I had a phenomenal interview with Dr. Lori Hood, who's a neuropsychologist. And so tomorrow I will be talking with psychotherapist Beth Tyson. So I hope you'll tune in on WOLBbaltimore.com or WOLB 1010 AM. And so I will close out. Thank you again for tuning in, and talk to you later.